But I'm jumping on today with a collective channeled message, and this is about twins. This could be referring to twin flames. As I was saying that, I heard karmic twins. Okay, so I'm not sure what the difference is between twin flames or karmic twins, or if there's always karma in any twin relationship. Matching souls, I'm hearing. So what Spirit channeled to me was regarding the Olsen twins specifically. And there were references to Full House. The specific reference was I'm coming, with, I don't know if it was Mary-Kate or Ashley as a kid running into the room. So like, I'm coming, hurrying to be in the room. And I don't remember that episode, but it could be relevant or significant here. This is obviously to do with twins. I was also hearing something to do with fame, and Spirit said the fortunate ones when I wrote down fame, the fortunate ones. And that's not necessarily from a spiritual perspective. That could be more from the ego perspective, but we'll see. And then I heard divergence. They said the divergence of genetics or genetic material in twin flame unions. Okay, so I forgot that I wrote that. So this is definitely about twin flames. And they said becoming one, becoming whole. And then what they showed me was this process of splitting and union or reunion. And they showed it to me like a DNA spiral. And I'll show you the image that I drew. It looks like this. So as you can see, what they were showing me was where the DNA would diverge and converge. The splitting and the union, the merging and diverging. So splitting equals temporary divergence for purpose of acclimation. That's what they said. I still am not sure what that means. I put a question mark next to it and said environment, question mark. And then they said event horizon. And I still don't fully understand what that means. I believe that term is connected to black holes. The event horizon is where the light, they said passage of no return, and that's where the light kind of goes over the edge into that vortex. And they're showing me the black hole right now as I'm speaking, and it's a merge point. And they're showing me light spinning around the edge being a diverge point, or showing the boundary line or the meridian. They're saying something about meridian. A meridian point, I'm not sure what that is. Isn't that like a cross section or like a splitting point down the middle? Okay. Splitting, diverge, union, merge. They also said becoming one with the epicenter. So the epicenter, oh yeah, I was shown something to do with sigma pi. And when I looked up what sigma meant, it was something to do with, and now I'm blanking on it. So we must be needing to look that up for ourselves, or there's something about this that I'm not meant to be sharing yet. I think this whole message is not meant to be shared yet, actually. Or is it resistance that I'm feeling toward sharing it? It's that one. Why? Because I don't want to be pigeonholed into twin flame content. Okay. Or misperceived in some way, because this content has a lot of nuance to it, and there's a lot of divergences, since we're talking about divergences from the truth. The twin flame community has become, like, at least online, quite toxic, and the idea of twin flames has been infiltrated by narcissists and used against the spiritual community for the purposes of harvesting of energy. So we have to be careful with the terminology that we're using, but they've chosen to say twin flame unions and unions of twins specifically. So becoming one with the epicenter, finding, they said the Holy Trinity. Okay. Me, you, us. I'm hearing we three, and 1, 2, 3, 1 point, 2 point, third point. Sigma pi is significant. Sigma If somebody could look that up, put that in the comments, or I'll put it on the screen here. And then pi being, I think, again, mathematically about finding the radius or the center point. I'm not a mathematician. This is not anywhere near my area of expertise, but Spirit has been bringing through a lot of information that does have relevance to science or has like a scientific backing to it. And I have to research because I don't know what they're talking about. So yeah, they said split, diverge, union, merge, coming together at a microscopic level. And when I heard that, they showed me an image of cellular biology, like a literal microscope, and they zoomed me in onto the little glass thing that sits there. And they said evolution of the species. So this is not just about twin flames. This is about all of humanity. This is about the evolution of the species and how the DNA merging genetic equals, they said, genetic equals coming together helps to prepare the masses, is what they're telling me right now, helps to prepare the masses for this consciousness evolution that will be physically embodied, tangibly embodied in this density form. Okay. And then they guided me to the Wisdom of the Oracle, this particular deck, and I shuffled, and what came out, or what the card pull happened to be, was the mending card. And I thought that was really interesting because they were showing me like this split and then connection and then split and then connection or merging. And it felt like the way that you would sew something. And I actually did a personal reading for someone earlier today, and that message was coming up as well. They were showing me actually a suit being tailored and being custom made and things being stitched together after being not the right fit. And that was in context to a karmic situation and a divine union. So this does feel like it's connected, or there's crossover there. And then I wanted to read it out of the book. So specifically the relationship message says, you've come to a place where forgiveness is necessary if you're to move forward. Separate or together, you and the other person are still experiencing the effects of a hurt that is impacting everything you do. Even if you're not aware of it, the energy needs to clear. And they're showing me DNA purging right now. Cellular die-off or apopsis, is that apoptic or apopsis? I can't tell. Sometimes when they say words I don't know, because I don't have a context for it, I may mistranslate it or mishear it. They use they said lexicon. Okay. They use the lexicon of the words that I have to channel information. But if it's outside of what I know, they'll bring it through, but I might, like I said, mishear it. So I'm going to have to do some research after this reading. So they said the energy needs to clear. What must you do to bridge the gap? And earlier today, I was also seeing references to closing the gap, close the gap. And the next line is, closing your heart is not the answer. Closing your heart is not the answer. That does not close the gap or bridge the gap. If anything, that just creates further separation from the self and from the other self, because that's what we're talking about here. The mirror image, or the reflection of the self through the outer realm. You have the power to heal this wound. Ask yourself, what would love do? I love that. I love that this book says that, because that's what I would also recommend. I couldn't have said it better myself. What would love do? Only good will come of forgiveness and an honest redress. I do also want to read the protection message. Heartbreak is a strange healer of souls. Our grief strips away our masks and loosens our tight hold on our separateness, where we view ourselves as I and the world as it. Loss allows us to see ourselves as part of a larger scheme, opening us up to sympathy, empathy, and dependence on others in the moment when we can't hold ourselves together. And it leads us to become one with the greater whole again. Pain and suffering is part of life, and none of us will be immune to it. Yeah, I can attest to that personally. Life is not third dimensional life, physical incarnation, not easy for anyone. Can you view this loss, this pain, this dissonance as a way back to source? Let your sorrow break your heart wide open. You will never be left behind. You are loved now more than ever by Spirit, who does not want you to feel alone. One day you will look back and know this truth. I think the greatest wound that we can experience upon incarnation is the separation from self, like the separation from source and the peace that comes along with that feeling of home and peace and wholeness, and that opposing effect of feeling split apart, or I'm hearing the word rift, but I was going to say like ripped from the home, from that peace, plunged into this density. It's very hard to acclimate sometimes. And they said acclimation before, split, temporary divergence for purpose of acclimation. Temporary divergence for purpose of acclimation. So maybe this temporary divergence is helping us to acclimate to the opening of the wound so that the healing can occur, so that the union is an inevitable result. They're showing me a bell curve right now, and I'm remembering that when they showed me Sigma Pi, and they're saying event horizon again. Oh, right. Sigma is like the median point, or it's drifting in and out of my consciousness as I'm trying to channel it. But they're showing me the bell curve, they're saying event horizon, and they're showing me like a line down the middle. So there's something of like a point of no return in a good way that we get to here when it comes to our consciousness. There's like peaks and valleys. They're showing me peaks and valleys. And these are related to the divergence and the convergence, or the merging. And the way they're showing it to me, it's like a spiral and a wave. Collapsing the wave function. They're telling me, okay, this is getting into like quantum physics. They're showing me time dilation and a spiral path. They're saying spiral path, and they're talking about time dilation. So this is very technical, high frequency channeled information. I don't know if everybody's going to understand this. I, as the channeler, don't even fully understand this, but I'm here to bring through messages, and how I interpret them is kind of less important. Well, it does play a part, but in this case, it's less important than the actual message itself that wants to come through. And actually, Spirit's also saying not just the message, the words, but the energy. And they're giving me the word affect and effect. No, affect. Affect can also be the way that we display emotion. And they're saying paralyzed affect, and they're showing me a face going still, or being very frozen. So don't close your heart. If the heart closes as a result of pain, it can paralyze the affect. That's what they're saying. And it feels like being pulled into a point of perpetual density, where it's like the heaviness of the weight of separation becomes there's like a sense of totality to it. But ultimately there's a wholeness coming from the result of this in some way, because it breaks you open and it lets the light in. And I can speak to that from my own experience. So I want to speak for a minute as Siobhan instead of the channeler. As Siobhan, I've experienced a lot of pain in my life, a lot of grief, a lot of loss, a lot of heartbreak, romantic and through loss of loved ones, like physical loss, death. And as painful and as traumatic those experiences were, and there was suffering involved in them, I chose to look at them from the perspective of my soul and use those experiences as an example of my heart cracking open, or as a catalyst for my heart to crack open. So instead of closing down to the pain, not wanting to feel it, wanting to separate myself from it, I chose instead to come together in that moment with myself, let myself feel. And it's so painful to crack open like that, right? Because it's like tearing a wound open. It hurts. It fucking hurts. But at the same time, it was so relieving and healing. And there was a lot of cathartic, like outpouring of energy in those moments when I was in the deepest depths of that pain and that suffering. And it allowed me to repair. It allowed me to stitch things up. It's kind of like with a wound, you need to purge it, you need to cleanse it, you need to get all of the infection or all of the dirt or dross, in this case emotional dross or energy, out of the wound prior to stitching it up. Otherwise it will become infected and you'd have to reopen it and then do it all over again. So this is a process of emotional release that allows us to come closer with the divine within ourselves, which is the inner union that twin flame physical union represents. It's not the other way around. It's not like the physical union is represented by the union with the self. It's the union with the self. That's the first and foremost principle here. That's the reason why these unions are taking place in the collective. And those physical unions are just a projection of what's going on in here. And they're part of a much, much, much larger template. Heart chakra healing is encouraged through this period of time, but this is a timeless message. So whenever you happen to see it, it's meant for you at that time or in this moment. Embracing some kind of an emotional purge or catharsis would be helpful. Being able to open up to the pain that you have experienced to make it tolerable through the grace of the divine is what they just said. Make it tolerable through the grace of the divine. They're saying something about a dark hallway, and they actually said that the light cannot escape the dark hallway. But weirdly, as they said that, I felt this sense of peace. Like, yeah, because the light needs to light that dark hallway. So instead of looking for the light at the end of the tunnel, the light is the tunnel, or it's in the tunnel, and it's right there with you. They're showing me something to do with balance. And they are showing me outliers. So on a bell curve, this is kind of like the average. And it starts out with dispersion being wide, and then it's very condensed in the center, and then it disperses again. And again, it's this shape or this spiral like I drew. The majority exist within that sort of middle section. But there's always going to be outliers. Now, I don't know if these outliers are supposed to represent actual people. Perhaps you feel like an outlier, like you're not part of that median group, like the average. Maybe you feel like you are below average or above average or just different in some way. You don't meet that same story arc, or your experiences are fundamentally different than those around you, which may be true. But I'm also getting this message that collectively, as humans, we are all going through staple events, is what they're showing me. And it's interesting because they've used the word staple as in like fundamental, but they're also showing me literal staples and how they clip paper together. They're showing me stapling the edge of a paper like you would kind of make it into pages in a book almost, holding something together. They did say story, so maybe this is talking about the narrative. Repairing, again, stitching. It's like stitching, mending, bringing something together. Okay, they did just say chapters in the book, and then the guidebook that we used to read the message here from the card, the mending card is the last one in the deck, because right after that, it's the author's note about the author, Colette Baron Reid. Oh, and about the artist, actually. The page after the one that we read was about the artist, Jenna Della Grottaglia. Sorry, I mispronounced that. But she hopes you enjoy the art that she has created for these cards and that it moves you in some way. There's something about the ending of the story, imagery, pictures. It's like a picture book, a choose your own adventure. That was the last reading on the channel that Spirit had me do. The pick a card. So there's something here about the story is evolving, I'm hearing, and when I look down, it says, Jenna is a self-taught artist who believes in being eclectic and unique in her styles. Oh, outlier. Hoping to always evolve and create new and wondrous art. So there's a process of like these unique points. They're showing me snowflakes now. That was a previous message that they kept channeling through. It was like this uniqueness and how certain snowflakes can be replicated if given the exact same temperature and climate functions. Like if in a lab, you can create two identical snowflakes by changing the environment. And they're also saying something about subsets of the environment. And the system will acclimate to reproduce the same genetic outcome. Okay, again, they're talking about genetic equals and twins. So this doesn't have to mean that you and another person or a group of people are genetic twins, but there's something about genetic equals that they want us to understand here. It doesn't mean that you're genetically, like that the DNA is identical. There's it's like the conditions for the development of that soul are close enough, tantamount is actually the word they're giving me, to create a similar outcome. And they're showing me outliers again. So it's like this doesn't necessarily fit into the generic genetic coding set. They keep saying subset. So it's like a subset of something, a subset of genetics. And they're saying acclimation to the environment. What environments we grew up in, what environments we're housed in. They're saying something about housing, and they're showing me like a lab and the conditions in the lab. So in a scientific experiment, if you're going to try to test a theory, you need to have lab conditions, meaning you need to have controls. You need to have variables and a variable group, but you do need to have controls, meaning that some of the participants, they're showing me like groups of people that are very similar and yet very diverse. Okay. And that being the control group. And then the variable group is a subset of souls that have very similar, they're saying genetic equals, very similar experiences, but that diverge from the whole or the norm. Ooh, okay, so this feels like a genetic experiment of some kind. And at the soul level, this is being under, and they're saying partake, that some of you have chosen to partake in. Prior to incarnation, your soul signed up, volunteered, actually is the word they're giving me, volunteered yourself for this experiment to see how it would go. What's the purpose of this, Spirit? They said to facilitate the acquisition of information regarding the genetic evolution of certain souls during a period of time conducive to separation used for growth. Separation used for growth. And it feels like in my heart, it feels like it's being ripped apart. Now, this doesn't... Usually we think of that as... Okay, so separation for separation's sake is not conducive to growth. Suffering for suffering's sake is not conducive to growth. I want to make that very clear, because we're not excusing or giving good reason for suffering here. We're not saying that this is a good thing. What we are saying is that the experiment was to see if these certain subset of souls could endure a lasting form of separation without losing the self. Okay, now we're getting down to like the really meaty parts, the bare bones of this. Bones are also where the DNA, they're saying collector, something about bone collector, but bone collecting. DNA is collected in the bones? No, but I think it's produced in the bones, isn't that? But they're saying bones and they're showing collector. Maybe there's a reference there that I'm not familiar with. But there's a process of clearing that's happening right now, and they're showing me a DNA cleanse. They're actually showing me a suit of armor now, so there's something about strength. They said sheet metal. Sheet metal? Okay. They're showing me covalent bonds, and they're saying strengthening the bonds. Covalent bonds, I think that's when two, again, science. I need to study more, but something about the structure of these two electrons being bonded together or coming back together again. They were also showing me applied heat versus applied cold. Temperature dilations. This could be representative of like different changes in the environment, not necessarily to do with temperature, but in terms of the closeness or the separation and how that influences the genetic expression or the behavioral attitude of the individual. So, for example, having love versus not having love in your environment and how that would change the presentation of your particular unique subset of DNA. They're showing me parcels, and they're saying effect again. Parcels feels like genetic packaging. And we're not talking so much about phenotype, we're talking more about consciousness here. So we're not talking about the way that your DNA constructs you into this physical form and dictates how you look or how healthy you are. And that's kind of part of it, but it's like a side message. They're saying the real core of this is what we're talking about here. They're actually showing me a plutonium core, they're saying electrodes, and they're showing me like, it's reminding me of the Simpsons when they have like those glowing, it looks like a glow stick, like a green glow stick, and they said core. So this could be talking about the core energy powerhouse of the cell. This could be talking about nuclear power or nuclear fission or fusion. This could be talking about, they're saying genetic population again, and they're saying mutations and how radiation can mutate, which distorts the DNA. What are we talking about here? They just told me that I'll figure this out later, like way down the line, like maybe even 10 years from now. I'm going to look back at this video and I'll understand it, but not right now. And that's okay. They're showing me a flame, fire, elements involved in the process of your development, spiritual catalyst, they're saying, and spiritual development or growth, evolution, changing forms. They're showing me the elemental, the periodic table of elements. They're showing me like a new element, and it's sitting up above all the other ones, and it's glowing. The way that they're showing it to me is it's glowing. So there's like a new element that's being formed from this experiment, which was the whole reason why it was undertaken in the first place. And some of those, they said several of those brave souls who volunteered didn't necessarily make it out, is what they just said. Then they're showing me the tunnel again. They're showing me a black hole. Oh, my heart. It hurts. Hold on. I'm feeling a big wave of grief for the souls that sacrificed. Okay, hold on. Ow. Okay. Thank you. Okay. I'm gonna need to process more of that after, but I was going to process it after, and they said, just do it now. So we're doing it now. I felt the grief of those souls and the compassion that I have for those souls, because we're all one. So it's like parts of the self that sacrifice themselves for the purpose of this experimental evolutionary practice, or this idea to test this theory, to see what would happen. Basically, it wasn't even like a theory. It was just like, let's see what happens if we do this. Because this is how we learn and grow as souls. And this is connected to the collective of humanity. So it was like there was a lot kind of riding on this. There was very high stakes. As I was crying and feeling that pain, again, I have to just let myself open to it and crack open and feel it, because the more that I try to say, no, I don't want to feel that, the harder it gets to process it, the more painful it becomes, the more dross builds up, the more it starts to attract more of itself to it, and it just perpetuates the suffering. So this is part of the message as well, is not succumbing to the intense pressure. And they're showing me a star imploding right now, which is how a black hole is created, imploding on itself, not letting the intense pressure. They're saying fusion, hydrogen fusion. They're showing me flames, and they're showing me a sun, coronal mass ejection, something about an event that took place in the past, historically. Sails of a ship. Okay. But when I was experiencing that pain, I looked over, and there's a book that says God's Brain on my shelf. And then right next to it, there's a book that says Healing on the cover. And I saw what they showed me was God's brain and the neurons making these new connections, and the healing that was taking place through these connections. So even though there were souls that didn't make it out, they're showing me a military salute right now. And they're showing me like the folding of a flag. This is to represent the honoring of the fallen comrades that went down, and they're saying went down in history at the soul level. They're being honored by the ascended masters. They're showing me these souls who gave their disincarnate life, not incarnate life, gave their disincarnate life for the purpose of this experiment, and lost themselves to the darkness. Now they're showing me that the darkness kind of like tears the soul apart in some ways, and it scatters it into oblivion. And that was the sacrifice that was made. It's hard for me to talk about it. I have no physical human attachment to these words, but I can feel the weight and the gravity. Gravity could be significant, but I can feel the weight and the gravity of what is coming through right now. And I can see what they're showing me clairvoyantly of these of these experiments in the soul. Okay. Okay, now I'm feeling a warming sensation in my heart, and I'm hearing the song, I'm Coming Home. I'm coming home, I'm coming home. Tell the world that I'm coming home. Let the rain wash away all the pain of yesterday. Forgiven my mistakes. That's part of the song. Is we were talking about that with mending. Forgiving ourselves for not knowing, forgiving each other for operating unconsciously, forgiving, they keep saying the masters. Who are you talking about here? Are you talking about forgiving the ascended masters? Why? For having employed the experiment in the first place. And they're saying, forgive him, he knew not what he did. This could be talking about a specific person, but the way that they're showing it to me is it goes all the way up. As below, so above. And it scales upward like that. So the forgiveness that is needed between you and another person, or you and yourself, same thing, is representative of the healing process that is occurring now regarding the forgiveness of the ascended masters, interestingly enough. Because some of these ascended masters and divine cosmic beings were involved in the presentation of this experiment and also volunteering for it. So a lot of the souls that volunteered for this experiment were ascended masters and are ascended masters as well. Or should I say descended masters. And they're showing me a spectrum of ascension, descension. And again, there's a convergence that they're showing me, this convergence coming together. Yeah, they keep showing me like the death of a star and the birth of a cell and how they look the same. So if you look at the birth of a cell through a microscope and you look at the death of a star, that left a scar. It's painful. It's an open wound, and that's the black hole. The black hole is the open wound, and it sucks in all light. So we have to heal the fabric of space, which is literally what gravity is. It is the bending and warping of space and time. Holy fuck. They're showing me silver orbs, silver balls. It kind of reminds me of Christmas. It reminds me of silver pellets, or like they're saying something about silver and opening the wound. And silver, they're saying silver is sterile. Silver is sterile. NG, is that silver? I mean, elementally. Silver is sterile. Silver is sterile. They keep saying it. And I think that's why traditionally it was in folklore, like a silver bullet is something that can't miss, or it's something that can kill something that can't be killed. Like, for example, a werewolf or a vampire or succubus. They're saying something about succubus. Oh my God, what the heck are we talking about here? They're saying something about purification and silver being purifying or being sterile. The silver lining, they just said silver lining. Oh, and I literally got silver lining on my nails. Can you guys see? That was for New Year's, but there's something about that. Newness, silver lining. They're showing me an amniotic sac, but it also is, they're also showing me like a silver lining around the auric field. The newness, the rebirth of the ascended masters. The convergence time is approaching, they're saying, and they're repeating, I'm coming, I'm coming, I'm coming. And they're bringing me back to that song, I'm coming home. Ascended masters reemerging on the planet as human consciousness elevates or expands. Okay. And this is allowing for a time of great spiritual development. And the masses, they're showing me the bell curve shifting to the right, meaning that the trajectory, or like the common mass consciousness, is going to evolve to a higher state. There will still be outliers in the lower and the higher position, but everything is going to upscale to, okay, they said something about famous addict. A famous addict, maybe somehow, I don't know. Oh, didn't the Olsen twins, weren't they? I'm so not into like pop culture in that way, like celebrities and stuff. So I really live under a rock with that kind of stuff. But I do remember back in like the 2000s, there was something about Mary-Kate and Ashley having like addiction issues or something. Maybe that's why this is relevant. I have no idea if they are physically, practically connected to what we're talking about here, if they just represent this pattern. Or there could be a celebrity addict who comes out and says something about spirituality, or about, they're saying something about relevance. What do you mean? Relevance to what? Okay, they're talking about relevance to a previously channeled message, not one of mine. This feels prophetic in some way, like something was predicted or something was stated previously, and then there's relevance that comes out in connection to that. They're saying restatement of fact. They're talking about reading between the lines. They're showing me that. Magnifying glass to read between the lines, like there's fine print between the lines. Oh, between the lines could even be literal if we're talking about addiction. Like lines, you know? Spirit's got a funny sense of humor. They said on the nose. Ha ha ha, literally on the nose. Okay. Escapism. Okay, that's the black hole. The black hole that's created in the self, the void that can't be filled through any amount of drug use. Or they just said sexual promiscuity. It just drags you further and further away from the self. And this is what addiction is. Addiction, like drugs and alcohol, are not the problem. They're the solution. Not a good solution, but they're a behaviorally adapted solution to treat the underlying problem that is operating in the unconscious. And it is fundamentally the separation from the self. And the pain that creates. Deep, deep cosmic chasm. They're showing me like a trench, like a deep, dark trench that, like, again, you can throw anything into that. It just disappears. They're showing me like pouring infinite amounts of gold and wealth into it. It just disappears. Pouring all of these things into that void, into that chasm, because void isn't the right word. The void is actually the point of creation where everything is born from. And it is like an infinite point of darkness, but it's not bad. This is a chasm. This is like a false creation, a distortion, a mutation. And it cannot be satiated, at least not through human means. It cannot be satiated through three-dimensional foods. They said the 3 F's: food, fornication, and firewater. Okay. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And I happen to be wearing my Guns N' Roses shirt today. So this could be talking about, you know, like, pain. Hold on. Something's erupting out of this. Something's going to manifest physically in our collective consciousness, because everyone is one thing. Like, we're all one. And so whatever's happening in the celebrity front is connected to us. Whatever's happening behind the scenes, behind closed doors and dark corners, that's also happening to us, because we're all one. We're not separate. There is no separation. That's part of the false illusion. And so this chasm can't be filled by the 3 F's, okay, or however many other there are. It can only be filled by, and they're showing me that stitching again, by stitching it up, by bringing these two sides of the self back together. And they are showing me like an image, an overlay over my chest of a broken heart, you know, like the traditional, I'll put a thing if I can here, but it's like, you know, the zigzag broken heart. And they're showing me those two sides coming back together. It reminds me of like a best friends necklace, like reuniting the self, becoming best friends again with the self, or a reunion with a best friend or with a lover, where forgiveness is paramount. Ooh, paramount pictures could be significant, because I said paramount and we're talking about fame. So there's this reunion process happening, and there's like a fractalization, and there's distortions at different densities or layers of what's going on here, but they're working on clearing things up. That's what Spirit's saying, is that the higher realms are working with those in the lower realms to clean up. And they said masterpiece. So ultimately, this is going to, they're showing me a magic mirror. They're saying something about, it's like magic mirror on the wall. It's going to break the spell. or it's going to show the truth, speak the truth. There's something about the mirror effect. Again, the twins, the reflection, there's going to be a truth that arises or that becomes clear. They're saying a new age dawns, and they're showing me horizon. Oh, event horizon again, but there's event horizon, a literal horizon as like in artwork. When there's a horizon in a painting, it's to anchor you into the scene, to show you, kind of to orient you in space and time so that you kind of know what's going on in the picture. And they're showing me the sun rise on the horizon. The rising of the sun, the rising of consciousness, the raising of consciousness. A new day dawns. The prophecy could have been in the Bible. I'm not well versed in the Bible. I've read like a quarter of it. So there's more research for me to do there, but this could be in the Bible. They're saying something about Jehovah's Witnesses, and they're saying revealed. I'm not sure if this is Jehovah's Witnesses being revealed in this, or if there's something that's being revealed from something that they believe in. Jehovah's Witnesses go knocking on door to door to try and spread the word of their faith. So this could be like that spirit is trying to deliver this message to as many people who are ready to hear it as possible. And this message will be revealed. They're showing me the mirror with like a curtain over it and then ripping the curtain off the mirror. The mirror will be revealed at the right time to those who are directly facing it. And they're showing me like perpendicular or right across. A right cross. This feels like math, but it also feels like it's a reference to the crucifixion, because we were talking about sacrifice of these souls, or these souls making the ultimate sacrifice. They said something about bending over backwards and how that's connected to a mark of the devil. I don't know. Okay, something about like this, like arching the back. And they're showing me spine upright. Spine needs to be upright. Bone structure. The ladder, Jacob's ladder, or the ladder of the spine being like the ladder of the soul somehow. Again, bone structure, bone collector, something about the bones sitting on top of each other, fitting together. The spinal column. And they're showing me a column of energy that goes up and then descends and then goes up and then descends. And that's like that wave pattern, collapsing the wave function. And this is all experimental. So we've kind of come to the closing point of this experiment. And now we're sort of like reviewing the results, or waiting to see the final outcome, or they're saying reviewing the results and then assessing the data. And they're saying that there's different data sets, different subsets. Again, like there's different groups, outlier groups, subsections, and they're showing me different quadrants that are being analyzed at this time by the divine and looking at the outcomes. And they're also saying cross-comparing, looking at how they overlap or how they've diverged. And what do we need to know about that, Spirit? They actually just gave me that question. What do we need to know about that? They said fine wine, everything's fine, adjacent to. Adjacent? Jason? That's what it kind of sounded like. Adjacent could be significant to someone here. I think that's a very specific message. But adjacent, like being next to something or next in line, or the positioning is important here. Okay, they're bringing me back to clearing again. Clearing is important. I looked up, it was 5222. So change, clearing, balancing, reharmonizing relationships. Karmic clearing, they just said karmic clearing. evening of the playing fields. They're showing me a loosening of some kind of a karmic knot and a debt repaid. They just said a debt repaid in full. Clearing the energy, clearing the vibrations. Soul resonance attunes you to the one, they said. They're saying something about compact discs, CDs, compact discs. Oh, compacted discs in the spine? For someone, that's a message. They're saying healing. They'll be healing in that. They're saying water. They said Watertown. Watertown? Was that like a water park? Watertown. Is there a place called Watertown? Watered down, something watered down, or maybe needing more hydration. I'm not going to try and interpret these messages too much. I'm just going to like leave them on the table. And these are the ingredients, and how you choose to cook with them is up to you. But yeah, this is what my job is to bring these messages through, even if I don't fully understand what they mean yet or at this time. Anything else? Okay, they said something about a personal biometer. Personal biometer. And they're showing me a needle on like a speedometer or like a heat gauge, in your car, and how it kind of fluctuates like this, or like a gas tank. You see the needle full, empty, or something. Personal biometer. Okay, and they're saying purification again. They said slow down as time demands much of you, dear ones. Slow down as time demands much of you, dear ones. And they're showing me skeletal repair. So, okay, if you're feeling tired, run down, if your bones are hurting, I don't know, that's what I'm feeling all of a sudden. If your bones feel like really dense or heavy, or they're in pain, rest. Let your body repair itself. Let your cells do their job, I'm hearing. Cellular repair. Okay. They're talking about DNA. They said DNA reconstruction. And they're showing me the building of a house. And the bones of the building are like these, what do they call, the studs in the walls, or like the framing. Right, the framing. Okay. And they're saying template. Yes, okay, so this is connected to the physical body, but it's also connected to like the soul blueprint and the spirit. And the way that the spirit is constructed is what they're showing me. And how this mending process is taking place. I just looked down at the wings on this card as well. So the wings could be significant. We could be talking about the energetic wings. They're showing me the silver lining again. The silver lining around the wings. Or this could be talking about the silver lining in a bad situation, being able to see that, perceive that. They're saying optimistic viewpoint. This keeps your heart open and allows your wings, which is literally the energy at the back of your heart chakra, to expand. Wings can also represent being in service to others as like an archetype. When I see wings on people clairvoyantly, I know that they work in service to other people, that they understand the nature of the law of one, or at least the nature of compassion. At the very base level, they understand love, and they operate from that. True, divine love, not just like human, I love you type of things. It's like real, like love. Okay, I think I will leave it there at 57 minutes. I hope that this reading helps you in some way. If it doesn't make sense now, maybe it will later. If something jumps out at you, maybe write it down, see how it becomes relevant, or just kind of keep it in the back of your mind until you start to see more synchronicities or some confirmations that spirit or that your guides or that your higher self may show you. Keep an open mind to how this information may be interpreted. Again, I'm not saying one thing or another. I'm just relaying this information as it's coming through. And I will also need to sit and kind of digest it and understand down the line what this actually means for us, for me, for you, for the collective, etc. But yeah, I hope that this served you in some way or served someone. That's always my goal. And I will leave it here. on the internet. Okay. I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you in the next reading. Bye.